Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla and this is going to be my July wrap up. First thing, I got a haircut. If you've seen me before, you'd recognize that, but if like this is your first one, you wouldn't. But I'm still trying to like learn how to figure it out. It's like curtain bangs. I'm supposed to be parted in the center, which is like a new thing for me, but it's like I got like second day hair with like dry shampoo in it, so this is what I'm doing right now. I don't know, over the next couple videos you'll see it look better than this, worse than this, whatever. Okay, so July was a weird reading month. I read 6 books and I think, let me double check before I just say stuff. Yeah, and 3 or 4 out of the 6, yeah, were nonfiction, which is like rare for me. I'm much more of like a fiction person, but I felt like my brain couldn't focus on fictional stories very well this month. So I was really enjoying it. I was listening to a lot of like audiobooks. I think almost all my nonfiction, yeah, were audiobooks. 3 out of 4 of the nonfiction were audiobooks. Finally said that sentence in a way that made sense. Okay, so I will just start at the beginning with the first book that I finished in July. I started it like the last couple days of June. Book is called Hope in the Dark, Untold Histories, Wild Possibilities by Rebecca Solnit. I don't know. But it's basically, I listened to that on audiobook. It's nonfiction. It was originally published in 2004, but this edition was updated in 2017. So there's like a foreword and an afterword or whatever that are a little more updated, or like the afterwards from the second edition in 2009, so it's more updated, but whatever. But most of the actual book was written in like 2004. And Rebecca Solnit is basically an activist who, she's done a lot of different things, a lot of stuff with climate, a lot of stuff with like women's rights, things like that. She's been out there like working hard since like the 60s. She's older. It is basically about the concept of hope, obviously, hope in the dark. But yeah, so it's like about hope, but like how hope is like vital in activism, and how in her experience there are so many more victories, like little victories than we know. Victories take longer and things feel like they're moving so slowly, but then like you look back and it's like you see all the work that went into it, and about like these little changes that eventually lead to radical change. The kind of main point of it is just like to not let despair and pessimism and all that stuff like bring you down, and to just keep having hope, and that the activists and the people who are hopeful for the future generally tend to be the most successful. And it was really good to listen to with some of the Supreme Court decisions that were kind of coming out at the end of June, and just the state of the world in general right now, where, you know, the oceans are boiling or whatever. Like, it's nice to remember that things do change, and actions that we think are meaningless here can have ripples around the world, and that just that it is really good to be hopeful. It was a quick read. I think it's like a 4-hour audiobook or something, and yeah, I was really glad I read it because it really helped when I was feeling kind of depressed about the state of the world. So yeah, then I read a physical book and a fiction book. I didn't really rate like I don't know, rating nonfiction is like weird. I often do it on Storygraph just because it like helps my stats look better, but I don't like stand behind it. Like I gave Hope in the Dark like 4, sure. But then I read The Only One Left by Riley Sager, and I actually gave that, I've seen some mixed things, but I gave it a 4.25. which is like, it's better than a 4, but this is not a 5, and I don't even think it's really like a 4.5, which, whatever. But yeah, so it's a new Riley Sager. I cannot believe I put a hold on it like a month ago at my library and was like the first person on the list, which was amazing, even though I then had like 2 weeks to read it all so that I get to like the next person on the list. Very stressful for me, who tends to start library books about 2 days before they're due. But yeah, so it tells the story of this girl Kit. It takes place in the 80s, which I did not realize before I started it. But yeah, it takes place in the 80s. It tells the story of this girl Kit, who she's like a care worker. She like lives with elderly and sick people to help them, you know, like a live-in nurse kind of thing, whatever. But she's not a nurse technically. But anyway, so she does that, and she, a year or so before the start of the book, kind of something happened that she was blamed, kind of possibly involved in the death of a patient. Like, you get details and more information on that throughout the course of the book. Not as long as I expected. I feel like the truth of that all came out like around the halfway point. But so she was kind of like on probation from her job for a little while, and she finally gets this opportunity to go back and work, and the place that she gets the job is called Hope's End, I believe, and it is the site of about 40 years prior, in the 1920s, there was a horrible massacre there where all the members of a family except for one girl, Lenora Hope, like were killed in like gruesome ways. And so it's very like Lizzie Borden-esque, like she's kind of blamed for it, Lenora, but there's like no real evidence. She got rid of the knife. It's like all this stuff. And so Kit is going to be caring for Lenora, who is now, she's had like strokes and stuff, and she's now paralyzed and confined to a bed or a wheelchair and only has use of like her left hand. And the book goes back and forth between like chapters of Kit's story and then like typewritten things, because Lenora can use a typewriter and she wants to tell Kit her story. So the whole book is Kit trying to uncover the story and uncover the truth. There are like ghosty kind of elements. I think when I went into it, I thought it was maybe gonna be a ghost story, but it's like not really. It's people, it's not paranormal. And yeah, it was just really, really interesting. Like, I just really got sucked into it. His books kind of, I've only read 2, this and Final Girls. I feel like they're a little slow until about like the 40% mark, and then cannot put them down. The twists in this one, there were a couple that I had like kind of started to predict a little bit, but like completely differently than I expected, like totally crazy. Yeah, it was just, it went in so many different directions. You're suspecting so many characters. You're like, is this old lady like murdering people right now? Like, it's really, really well done. And I found the main character like really likable. I found all the other side characters like interesting. There's a twist. There's a crazy twist with like 10 pages left, I swear. And I was like, how are you going to resolve this all in like 10 pages? And then the epilogue is like a twist. Oh my god, it was so good. I cannot recommend it enough. Like, I think Riley Sager gets like some deserved shit for like kind of making a lot of the same female characters. Like, when I tried to read like The House Across the Lake, I was like, she kind of reminds me a lot of the main character of Final Girls, where it's like the unreliable narrator, substance abuse problem thing. But this didn't really have that. Like, especially once we found out the truth of what had happened at her job, I really trusted Kit, and she was at some points making some stupid choices, but you know, it's a thriller, they gotta. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and I definitely recommend that book if you're like, I don't know, like I didn't enjoy this Riley Sager or whatever, to try again with the only one left. It is not it's kind of scary, but there's no ghosts, so it's just humans being scary. So recommend that. Then I listened to the audiobook of I have to read the title because it's long. They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib, which is a collection of his essays. He is a poet and a music journalist mostly, who he wrote for like MTV News, and you've honestly probably read something by him at this point if you like music and music journalism in any way. And he is a Black man who grew up in like the suburbs in Ohio, and a lot of his like formative experiences were like around like punk and pop punk shows, which was like really relatable to me because that was like my thing. And he writes a lot of really interesting essays about like Blackness, and there's ones about like sports that I was like fascinated by, and like I don't care about sports at all. And I really loved, he had an essay about Chance the Rapper that I loved. The book like starts and ends with an essay about like Carly Rae Jepsen at like different points in her careers and different feelings, and it's just like amazing. There's an amazing essay about Fall Out Boy, which is one of my favorite bands of all time. There's essays about like some more like classical kind of, classical is like the wrong, classics, like, you know, there's one about like Fleetwood Mac's Rumors and stuff like that, but they're all about like so much more than that. It's not just like here he's talking about like the new Carly Rae Jepsen record. It's about like community or whatever, or his essays about like sports especially are a lot about like Blackness. His essays about like punk rock are about like being Black in this punk rock space, which is supposed to be like safe and inclusive, but like as a person of color it's not, and all that kind of stuff. And I just really loved it. He narrates the audiobook, and he is an amazing narrator. Some of the essays are a little more poetic, and so he reads them like poems, and yeah, it was so amazing. Like, it made me cry, it educated me, it made me want to check out some of the music that he mentioned that I hadn't listened to that much. I really, really, really recommend it if you're looking for like an essay collection. There's a lot of like heavy topics around like the Black Lives Matter movement and suicide and mental health and like the death of his mother and stuff like that, but it's all really moving. And there's also just as many essays about like joy and community and love and what music brings to us all. So definitely recommend it. I'm not like, if he has like books of poetry, I'm like, I need to like read more from him. He's so talented. Oh, and I gave that 5 stars, like 5 stars, 100%. Like, I know I said like I don't always stand by my ratings for nonfiction, but with this one I do. Then kind of for summerween, I read Any Man by Amber Tamblyn, which I've seen a lot of people recommend. I think specifically Gabby Reads and Moonlight Library, and I gave that 4 stars. It is really difficult. It's like it's like a horror novel, but I would say it's like, when I think horror, I think like different things than this, because it's very unsettling. It is the story of the victims of a female serial rapist, so the male victims, and just all of that. The way it's written is so cool. Like, there are like chat transcripts, and like some things are like poems, and some things are like just like answers to questions, and then like a couple pages later you get like questions, but they don't correspond. It's so well done. There are some parts that are absolutely horrific. There's a thing with a cat that is rough, but it's just like mentioned, but it just like it really messed me up for like a minute. So I would maybe look into what that is if you're like a cat lady like me. But yeah, and it's just like these different victims like deal with what happened to them so differently. Like one of the guys sucks, like he sucks. Every part from his point of view is awful, but like that's important. And then like some of them become like activists, and some of them just like live their life, and it's, yeah, it's just, it's really, really important. It felt like an important book, and the writing is amazing, and I'm definitely excited to see what she does next. But I didn't give it a 5 because parts of it just kind of freaked me out a little too much. Like, I don't know. And it didn't make me cry, which I was kind of expecting it to. So then I was like, oh, it didn't make me cry. I think it was just the formatting. I couldn't like quite get as lost in it as I can with like traditional prose, I guess. So, but it was amazing, and the writing is a 5. It just, you know, things either hit for you or they don't. So for me, it's a 4, which is amazing. That is like such a solid book. And yeah, definitely look up all the warnings for it. But since we're getting into like spooky season pretty soon, I would recommend like picking it up if you want something kind of freaky, but also like important and a not much discussed topic that I think deserves a lot more attention. Then I listened to the audiobook, again, a long title, Come As You Are, The Surprising New Science That Will Transform Your Sex Life, which is what it says. It's just, it's really mostly just about like understanding yourself as, I'm gonna use the word woman because I will say that the book is a little cis hetero woman focused, but it obviously applies to anyone who has like a vagina. And it's weird to say like vagina on camera. I don't know why, but yeah, it's, but yeah, she addresses the fact that it's a little like that. And one of the, there's like anecdotes in it, and one of the anecdotes in the women, they're like amalgamations of women into different kind of stories that she's telling. She is a lesbian, so that's something. It just, obviously it's a little, you know, because it has to be, it's talking about like female reproductive organs, you know, but I think some of the like psychological stuff about like women versus men is just like a little outdated, but whatever, you know, like I'm a cis woman, so it worked, it was for me. But yeah, it really just talks about like a lot of the different factors that make women hate their bodies and make women feel like the way they have sex or like sex or any of those things are wrong, whether it's society telling you that you're a slut because you like it too much, or a prude because you don't like it enough, or all these things, and how everything is like to the like male ideal, like this is the way like men's sexuality works, so that's got to be like the correct way, instead of like all the way that like women's sexuality works. Talks a lot about like the media and like fat phobia and pressure and morality and all these different things that can get in our heads from society and from the world and from our family that mess with our image and our connection to our bodies. And I would definitely recommend it to like everyone with a uterus, especially if you're like in a stage in your life where you're like, I don't even know what I like, you know, like I feel like a lot of people spend a large portion of their life being like, I don't know, this is just what I do, and without figuring out like what really gets them going or how their brain and body and all of that work together. I think that's really important, and I think that a lot more women should read it early in their sexual development to understand themselves before you get all messed up and then have to like unlearn stuff. But yeah, it was really good. There were points that like made me cry because it was just like, wow, like I feel so like validated because other women have also been messed up by society in that same way or whatever. So definitely recommend it. The audiobook was really good. It like, if I got it on Scribd, so then I had to also get like the physical book in order to like see like the quizzes and the PDF stuff. But like if you get it from like an Audible thing, I think it like comes with a PDF with like quizzes and stuff. But whatever. Yeah, it was very good. And then the last book is my only physical book, and that, well, that I like still have because library books are back at the library. And I finished this last night. So it is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. Rilke is he's born in Prague, it says, but I think of him as like a German poet because he was German speaking. And I first read Rilke in college in an English class. We read the Duino Elegies, which are these like, I forget how many, like 10, somewhere between 10 and 20 like sonnets that he wrote that all kind of go together. I can't analyze it right now, but I was absolutely obsessed with them. And then I also just really loved different like Rilke quotes and stuff, and they meant a lot to me. He meant a lot to me. I wanted to get a tattoo from one of the elegies for a while, and now I'm thinking of a different tattoo that would be from this. But this specifically is what it says. It is letters all written kind of, I believe, between 1907 and 1908, or 1908 and 1909, between him and a young poet who they actually, like, Rilke had like studied this like military academy. He hated it. And then this young poet also studies there and like is talking to like a professor they had in common, and like the professor's like, you should like, if you like Rilke's poetry so much, just like, here's his address, just like write him a letter. And so he does, and then they just like correspond. And the letters, we only have the letters from Rilke, but that's the important stuff. They are amazing. They are about art. They are about life. They are about love and God. And my camera died for a second, so I don't know what I was in the middle of saying, but there's just, it's just like, he's at the beginning, he's like, I'm not going to give you advice. And then the rest of the other 10 letters are advice. But, you know, it is absolutely amazing. I like got through like half of it, and then I was like, wait, I have to annotate this in some way. So I just like got a highlighter and highlighted some of my favorite lines, and it was amazing. I feel like I've known about this forever and loving Rilke. I was like, I need to read that. But I think in a lot of ways I was like waiting for the perfect moment. Like I knew there was going to be a time when I was like, I need this. And I got this. And I did a lot of research on like what translations are good. And one of the kind of most famous, I want to say, it's like a Miller translation, is apparently not good. So if you're looking for a copy, try and avoid that one. Yeah, it's just so good. I want to like read things and like share my favorite little bits, but I mean, I could just read the whole thing. If this, any rise in intensity is good as long as it wells up in all of your blood, and as long as it's not simply a high or a murky rush, but a joy clear to its bottom. Like, it's just like about talking about like big feelings, and there's all this stuff about like sadness and how sadness is good, and how being lonely and like solitary is good, and how like love should be between two people. Like the best kind of adult love is between two people who have like spent time like understanding themselves. And it's just my absolute favorite Rilke quote is the, perhaps all the dragons in our life are princesses who are only waiting for the one moment where we are beautiful and courageous. Like it's so good. I actually like cried like a baby reading that, which you might see because I was filming it for a reading vlog. But yeah, I loved it. I think it's a must read for anyone who who is a human being on this earth. Like, I was gonna say for like anyone creative, but honestly it's more than that. It's just about being a human, and I cannot recommend like Rilke as a poet, as a writer enough. Like, absolutely incredible. 5 stars easily. It's a book I'm gonna come back to like over and over again, I can tell. So yeah, it was a really, really good reading month, even though I felt very slumpy and very kind of frustrated with it all when I was like, my brain cannot focus on any fiction. I had all these library books that I was so excited for and all of that, but 6 books, and you know, it's good to read nonfiction. Like, I learned stuff, so that's cool. So thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and tell me your favorite books. Definitely actually recommend me like any nonfiction that you've loved recently, because apparently I'm in a nonfiction mood right now. And I don't love like self-helpy kind of books, but if they're like self-help that like don't feel like get off your lazy butt and kick ass, girl, like, you know, that's bad. Like, it's like